and welcome to How Do Artists, a show that focuses on a single topic of conversation and asks the question, how do artists live, work, play, run their business, stay inspired, or handle challenges and adversity from an artist's perspective? I am your co-host, Karlana Pedersen, artist and illustrator, and I am joined by co-host, musician, and producer, Ryan Caldwell.
Thank you, Karlana. Our topic for conversation today is how do artists find themselves? Our guest today is Ashira Siegel Fox. She is a local artist originally from Southern California. She began experimenting with a variety of different art methods and mediums to create her signature unconventional paintings using color, texture, depth, and dimension. Although she considers herself to be largely self-taught, her work over the years has been largely inspired by her own widely varied life experiences. Today, we are going to have a conversation with Ashira and discuss of those experiences as it relates to artists finding themselves and their artistic voices. Welcome, Ashira. How are you doing? How has your week been so far?
Welcome, yes.
Hi, so nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being on.
I feel honored. The week has been a little bit of a whirlwind. I have a kindergartner who is distance learning on Zoom these days, so I'm with him a lot on Zoom. I never imagined I would go back to kindergarten, but here we are. So it's been a week. Glad that it's Friday. TGIF.
Oh my gosh, yes. Right? Well, I am so fascinated with you and your life, and we have had a couple of really interesting conversations so far, and you have such an interesting background. So to say that your life has been wildly varied might be a little bit of an understatement, right? So can you give our listeners just a brief summary of your major overall experiences that you've had that would explain that comment and why you say that?
Yeah, I can give the elevator pitch of my life.
30 seconds, go.
30 seconds. I grew up ultra Orthodox Jewish. I grew up Hasidic, actually, in a particular sect called Chabad or Lubavitch. I grew up in Southern California, and I remember being a really little kid and just really realizing that it was not how I wanted to live my life. So I spent a large number of years kind of trying to, kind of forge my own way out of that life. So I think from about the age of like maybe 6 or 7 until my late teens, early 20s, I really was just trying to like hold on to who I felt I was in this very, very insular, pretty restrictive lifestyle. But I grew up in Southern California. I grew up in Los Angeles. So, I grew up just, a couple miles south of Hollywood. So it's not like I wasn't seeing everything around me. And I was a very curious child. I wanted to know a lot. I read a lot of books. We did not have the internet at that point.
Right.
Dating myself a little bit.
No, that's absolutely right.
Yeah. So I just kind of took in whatever I could, wherever I could get it. I was a voracious reader as a child. And then I went to high school in Massachusetts. I went to a Hasidic boarding school for like, I say it was for like the wayward girls. But it was for the kids that like didn't really fit into the general regular, Hasidic schools for kids that age. And then after that, I lived in Israel for about 3 years. I got married when I was 20. It was sort of my last ditch attempt to sort of do, I guess, what I thought I was supposed to do for that lifestyle. Like, okay, maybe if I get married and, start this life, maybe then I will be content or something, like okay with being what I was told I was supposed to be for like my whole life,
Well, wait a second. Did that not happen though?
Did what not happen?
Did that not work out though?
Oh no, it did not work. No, thank goodness. I mean, it really, I think that, right. So I got engaged on my 20th birthday. I was married to him for 8 months and I divorced before my 21st birthday.
Wow.
I think we had a 2-month engagement, maybe. Very fast, which
Was he of the same faith?
Yeah, he was Orthodox Jewish. He was not of the same Hasidic sect. But he was very, very Orthodox, very religious. And it just, we had, it was not, it just wasn't where I needed to be. And I realized along the way, within a few months, that like, this was a mistake. Like,
well, it's funny because such a quick turnaround for marriage is very unorthodox by most standards.
Yeah, definitely. But my parents were very supportive in their ways. When we were living on you can't even imagine. We were living on a settlement in Israel, like on a mountaintop, surrounded by a barbed wire fence. There was a bus that came up once a day, maybe. It was pretty intense. It was definitely not where I wanted to be. But when I called my parents and I said, I don't think this is right. Like, I need to figure out what's going on. I can't be here. I need to come home. They dropped everything and sent me a plane ticket. Because they, I think that they really knew that was not where I needed to be. So really, like, a huge credit to them for being able to do that for me. So I left him before I turned 21, moved to New York, got myself into college, became entirely irreligious, became a bike messenger, and I became an artist.
Wow. So that kind of puts everything into focus for the most part. And that's there's so much there to dig
unpack.
into, to unpack, to rewind. Let's talk about your time a little bit in New York. Now, you said that you were a bike messenger, and in our conversation with you, you had mentioned that as a bike messenger, you did a short film.
Yeah.
So I went and looked for that short film, and I gotta tell you, I did love it. It was short.
Yeah. I think it was about 10 minutes, 8 minutes.
It was about 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of 2 other people that have a similar story online, but you feel like you were the pioneer in that storyline. So tell us about that. So it was called Even the Girls, correct?
Even the Girls, yeah.
Even the Girls. And it's on YouTube. So if
it is on YouTube. Yeah, I made it in 2004. Sorry, I'm like interrupting. Ashira, interrupt this.
No, I was just saying to the listeners, look it up. It's called Even the Girls. It's an 8-minute short film about a little bit of into the life of what it takes to be a female bike messenger in New York. And it's enormously entertaining. So why don't you tell us a little behind the scenes on that?
Yeah. So, I got myself into college somewhere along the way. Look, when I left my ex-husband, I remember getting on the plane and thinking, I know this is a family-friendly show, so I'm not going to say the words exactly that I was thinking, but I remember thinking, there is no way I'm going back. There's no way I'm going back. And so when I got to New York, it really became about, who am I? Like, who am I? My whole life was, I was kind of led in a certain direction that I knew didn't work for me. Mm-hmm. And then when I finally left for real, I was pretty just flailing, I really had no idea. So I got myself into college. I got myself into one of the city universities of New York.
What were you studying?
So when I first got into college, I made a decision. I think I was 21 years old, and I made a decision that I was going to take the classes that were interesting to me. And that was it. because I had no idea what I wanted to do or what I wanted to be. I just had no idea. So the things that were really interesting to me were sociology and media studies and women's studies and art. And so I kind of just kept taking classes that, like I said, that were interesting to me. And that kind of, became like my focus became media studies and women's studies and studio art. And so when I was at Hunter, I went to Hunter College. And when I was at Hunter, I didn't really have a lot of friends, but somehow I fell into, or not somehow, a friend of mine who also grew up in the same Hasidic sect that I grew up in, and who also became not religious, and who also went to that school, introduced me to a bunch of her friends. And they were like these hippie drums. We used to do drum circles in Central Park. And like, it was just like so fun. And one of the guys who became my boyfriend for a long time, he was a bike messenger, and he had been a bike messenger. At the time, he was actually an EMT. But he got me into bicycles as an adult. I loved riding bicycles when I was a kid. My Hasidic neighbor taught me how to ride a bike when I was maybe 5 or 6, like so sweet. And when I got back into bicycles as a grown-up, like something really shifted for me. And it was like I felt like for the first time I was like in my body, and it was like this real like powerful, I don't even know how to describe it, but it's so physical. And especially in New York, where you're like weaving through traffic, and like, I remember like a cab would get too close, and I would like bang on the hood of the cab, like, do you see me? And so it really like gave me a voice. And so as I became more and more part of that community, and actually became a bike messenger, and we had like underground street races, and you can go online, you can see all sorts of stuff, like what bike messengers in New York, and like the these street races that are called alley cats. I realized that like there were so many guys. There were just so many dudes, and there really just were not a lot of women. But the women that were there were like just amazing. These super tough, smart, just real awesome people. And so I decided that I really wanted to highlight them. I really wanted to highlight the women messengers that I knew, because all of there were like a lot of films, not a lot. There were a couple films that were made at the time about bike messengers, and they, because it just is a fact that there are like a ton more men in that kind of job than there are women. It just highlighted, most of the men, and then there'd be like kind of the token female, the token woman messenger. Right. But I really wanted to like just highlight these amazing women. So that's what I set out to do. I was studying media at Hunter at the time, and I was taking a film class, so it kind of like very easily fit into that. But it was.
One of my
I'm proud of it.
One of my favorite scenes was one of the bike messengers, and forgive me if I don't remember her name, but she talked about how she got more sexual attention as a bike messenger than she did when she was a stripper.
Yeah.
And that it just sort of encompassed what I feel is relevant even today, and that is what the Me Too movement talks about, what it was like this microcosm of what I feel like women in business and in their careers have had to deal with. And it was such an extreme, because you've got this job as a bike messenger, which is sort of a trailblazer for women that are in it, and what they've had to do to just compete. And it just reminded me of my own experience when I was working in production, and I was only myself and 2 other women in the entire country running a 108 channel analog soundboard and splicing reel to reel by hand. And so it was one of those things where watching that was, oh my gosh, it just brought up so many things that I feel is such a relevant message today. When you think about that, what goes through your mind when you created it back in, was it 2004 versus now,
2004.
2020? I mean,
Yeah. I
how
just can't
has
believe we're
things
still
changed
having
and
the
how
same
have things
conversation.
got-
Like, I can't believe we're having the same conversations. I can't believe that it's like still a thing. I can't believe that we're having the same conversations that our mothers and our grandmothers had. And like, it's just,
Yes, thank you.
yeah. I mean, like you're only, and I think the thing that I appreciate is that I think that there are more people talking about it.
Mhm.
So I think that it's not this thing anymore. People are like, oh no, that doesn't happen. What are you talking? Or that was just your experience. Like, no,
Right.
people know that it's not just yours. And I think that's the most powerful, or one of the powerful things about this now, is that people feel like they can say something. And
Right.
once people feel like they can say something, then you realize, oh, I'm not the only one. Like,
Exactly.
this isn't an isolated incident. This is like a societal issue. And it's been an issue for like, I mean, I guess forever, right? Like, has there ever been a time when, sadly,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
So-
it's never been better documented though.
it's never been better documented,
Than this day and age, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that there is power in communicating our experiences and being heard. But that doesn't change the structural issues. And I think that that's really where like this work needs to be done. And I think that, that starts with putting women in charge, honestly. I think that the more we have positions where, women's voices are at the table, then I think that those power dynamics will start to shift, because things are not okay when, like when some guy, whoever, I'm sure we could list a large number of people, when they think they can just, do whatever they want because they're in charge. Like, no, people didn't agree to that, so.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and that's also, I feel I'm optimistic in thinking that's kind of a philosophical dynamic that's dying.
I hope
feel
so.
like that's less and less, I mean, you look at like the 80s, for instance, and that was in the zeitgeist at the time, right? It's like, of course, the person in charge gets to go and call the shots. They're basically, everyone gets to be their own little dictator.
Yeah.
But nowadays it's very much, that's, even in the cases where that's still the same, people just aren't bragging about that.
Well, I mean, I think also like the way, look, everybody's got a camera on their phones. Our phones are with us 24/7. So people better be careful about what they do, because anybody could be recording it. So I think that's also a shift where I think that, what's that phrase? Make racists afraid again, right? So I think the same thing kind of applies, right? Like make like sexual harassers afraid again, or like make misogynists afraid again. Like, I don't, because like they should not be doing what they're doing.
Right.
Anyways.
No, I totally agree. And you know what? I just wanted to circle back.
Yeah. Sorry, it's like a passionate subject for me. I'm like,
no. Bring it.
Yeah.
But there is something that I don't know if I have clear in my mind, and that is, you mentioned that your parents had an ideal about what it was they expected from you in your life. What was that ideal? What was it that they expected from you in your life in terms of what you were going to do?
Yeah. So, look, my parents are both very highly educated. They are, my mom is a nurse midwife. She's a women's healthcare practitioner. My dad graduated from like UC Berkeley in the 70s. But, they had their own path, their own spiritual path, and they really felt like they found the right way to be.
Sure.
For that, and so, that's their right way to be. So I don't know how much it's like this anymore. I think that community in general has maybe shifted a little bit from this. But, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, it was expected that I would, do a year or so of seminary, like post high school seminary, maybe 2. Sorry, I said that right, a year or 2. And then, the expectation was really that I would I would get set up with some guy and go on a few dates and find the right guy for me with the help of a matchmaker.
Okay.
It wasn't, so we didn't, the sect that I grew up in, like, they don't do like the heavy matchmaking where it's just like,
Right.
this is pretty much who you're going to marry unless you hate them, right?
Right.
So it wasn't like that.
Which is in some cultures. Absolutely.
It is in some Hasidic sects.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that in some Hasidic sects still, So, but I was expected to, get married and have kids and be religious and be part of that community. And yeah.
So there was no mention in terms of career for you. It really was more the domesticated version of what.
I mean, I remember my dad saying something to me. I think I was in high school, maybe late high school, and he kind of acknowledged that he knew that I wanted to go to college. And so he was like, yeah, would I love it if you went to seminary and got married and had a bunch of kids? Like, yeah, but, I know that you probably want to go to college. So, so there was that thing, but it was very clear what I was supposed to be doing, so there was a lot of pressure. There was like definitely a lot of pressure.
Which, wow, that's just such a dated perspective though. It's like
I mean, yeah.
Like I remember talking to my mom about things like that and her parents being like, oh, I guess, I mean, you're a woman, so I guess you can go to college too. But, it's not,
but the men in that community are not expected to go to college either. They're expected to, like, for the most part, they go to rabbinical school. A lot of them, they become rabbis. They're very highly studied.
I have never heard the word rabbinical before.
The word rabbinical?
It makes total sense. But,
yeah.
Yeah. I learned something. Look at that.
Yeah. Hey, learn something every day. So, I think that just that world in general does not really embrace secular education as far. Look, there's plenty of like doctors and lawyers and, very highly educated people. But I think that, what the people are encouraged really to, stay within the community and study and have families and be religious and, study Torah and do those kind of things. And yeah, so it wasn't for me. It's definitely not for me.
Everybody has their own path, right?
Yeah, there is a little bit more to life.
Yeah, so, I mean, for some people it works, more power to them. Great, but it's not for everybody.
Well, okay, so I've got a question for you. So how do you feel that your upbringing, like, how has that affected your artwork specifically?
Yeah. So, even though I'm not religious, there are still things that I feel very connected to because of my upbringing, because of how I was raised and memories that I have. So, there's various prayers that make it into my work. And I love the Hebrew alphabet as well. So that features in some of my work. Like I just love, like there's just such they're just such ancient letters, and they're just, I just think they're so beautiful. And there's a lot of things that come into my work. I like to make Jewish art as well as my other stuff. I like to make work that people in the community that I was raised in, or some of my work. Look, some of my work is not for everybody, right? Certainly I have some work that would not be for that community. But I do like to make work that the people that I still love in that community, because I still have, people that I grew up with that I'm very deeply connected to.
Absolutely.
And so I like having work that they would be proud of, and that they would, I love, giving my parents different pieces and, seeing it in their house, that they're proud to display it. I think that, I'm really fortunate in that I, after many years, have a pretty good relationship. I have a very good relationship with my parents and my family. I have a lot of friends.
That's a blessing.
It's a real blessing.
It is.
Like I say, I feel so fortunate about that. I have a lot of friends who were not as fortunate.
Yeah, especially when you've separated yourself
Yeah.
from the religious aspect of how you grew up to a large degree, because
Yeah.
even though you have to follow your own path, I totally understand what you mean and what you've been through, and it's still a difficult situation.
Yeah.
And I feel like parents can sometimes maybe get a little bit defensive or hurt,
Yeah,
because this
absolutely.
is a piece of their soul that that they
Yeah.
were hoping to pass on to their kids. And I think it is an absolute blessing when parents can look at that and say, it's not what I had hoped, but
Yeah.
this is our child. We love that child, and
Yeah.
we're going to be there no matter what, and still do your best to get through those things, and still hang on to your bond. I think that's I think in that of itself is just is a blessing, and just not everyone
Yeah.
has that.
I mean, look, regardless of religion and religiosity, people have all sorts of different relationships with their families. Like, so, I
Right.
I feel very fortunate in general with my family, and especially given that I chose a lifestyle that is so different than theirs.
Right.
Um, you know, uh, I think as parents, like I'm a mom of two. I have two little kiddos. And as parents, we have not just hopes and dreams, but expectations. And so as a parent, like I have to work so hard to not put my expectations on this tiny little person who's just barely beginning to figure out who they are. And they're their own people. Like I can try and influence, and I can try and, obviously like help them and, all those kind of things, but ultimately they've got to decide. And so
Right.
and for me too, like I had to make those decisions. It's not easy being a parent. I'll tell you, I'm way more humble now being a parent
And
towards
wait
my
till they
parents.
turn to
Mhm.
teenagers. That's
Oh,
gonna be another fun.
I'm already scared.
That's a whole other
Yeah,
experience.
I know. I
So,
think every age, right? You're just like, "Oh, but I just got used to this."
I
No.
thought the potty training stage was the worst ever. I'm like, that's one stage I'd never want to go back into, like all the way up to
Yeah.
that one section. I'll take that 3 times over. I
Right.
mean, now I'm in some other sphere of
Yeah.
things, and
Yeah.
and you realize you didn't know as much as you thought you
No,
did.
I mean, was it Mark Twain? Was it Mark Twain who said that, that thing he said where it was like, I'm gonna like totally butcher it, but he said something about how when I was a kid, uh, I thought my dad was such an idiot, and then
Yeah.
I turned 20 or 20 whatever it was, and like, wow, the guy had learned a lot. Wow, the guy had learned a lot in just a few years.
I know, right?
um,
It's
yeah,
crazy, but yeah, it's all a part of life, and
yeah, yeah,
so based on all of that your experience, and what you had to go through, and coming out on this side of things, you're an artist, and
mhm,
you're doing what you want to do in your life,
yeah.
and you have this great relationship with your parents, and
I
you
mean, like every
are
family, we all have our ups and downs and all that,
sure.
but thankfully, overall, yeah, we're in a
No,
good place.
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah,
you've nothing is ever perfect.
yeah.
But what was the hardest part of developing your own artistic voice and sense of self through all of that? What was the
Yeah.
hardest?
Um, I think I think for me it was trusting myself, trusting my eye, um learning to let myself do what I knew I needed to do versus what I thought other people thought I should be doing. Like I'm not a drawer. I'm not going to say I hate it, but I strongly dislike drawing. Like
You mean
if
paper and pencil kind of
I
drawing?
mean like figurative, like not figurative, but like, realistic kind of drawing. I
Right.
like doing drawings that are, more abstract and, mark making and that kind of thing. But when I was, I took a couple classes, it was like, here, draw this stack of rocks or, whatever it was, like learn the shapes and the forms and all that. It's so tedious to me. Like, and I look at people who do that. My sister's an amazing artist. You guys should look her up. Her name is Rivka Krinsky, rivkakrinsky.com. Her work is just beautiful. And she's an oil painter, and she's so painterly, and she does these gorgeous, she is like, I'm like, I'm a mixed media artist. I like move all this stuff around, and I have to see it this way and then see it that way. And then I bring this thing over here, and this pile of papers that I had on my desk in a certain way. And I like those colors together. That was just an accident, but I'm going to pull from that and look at what this does over here. And oh my God, I'm so like ADD scattered, but still so, my eye is always looking, is always seeing things. And so once I learned to trust my eye, then I think that's when things started really opening up for me, in terms of like what I knew what I could do, because, you can't really, if you don't trust yourself to do the thing, it just gets a lot harder.
Right.
So, so once I stopped, I don't know. I really like to play. And I really like to learn about different ways of making images. I love doing transfers, like different types of like photo transfers and things like that. And so like all these different things have like set me off on the next thing. So, I just, I don't know. I hope I'm being articulate.
I'm getting lost in what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm also getting a little lost.
No, have you ever to that point, have you ever taken a piece of transfer paper and like saw a pattern in like marble or wood or something, like and seen like a face or a pattern, and you're gosh,
that's called pareidolia. I think it's called pareidolia.
Pareidolia.
I'm gonna look at pareidolia or pareidonia. So it's when you see an image in something that's not there. So like if you're looking at the clouds and you see a face, or you see a dragon or something. Yeah, it's so cool. Totally.
And you've taken transfer paper, and I have taken like transfer paper and like have like, the
rubbed, like done rubbings and stuff. Yeah.
Back on it. Yeah. And like tried to copy it and put it on something else so I can recreate that image. But sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But you talking reminded me of that, because you see things differently.
Yeah, that's a large part of being an artist, is you see things. You got to trust your eye. You see things differently, and you take in this stuff, and then you create out of it. I mean, like obviously, right? Like that's like the silliest thing to say, because it's like so obvious.
No, it's true.
But it's true. Like it's, like I all the things, all the little studio tests and things that I've tried, and Polaroid transfers, and working with my, like I was invited when I was a bike messenger, not when I was a bike messenger, when I moved to LA, I became like more of an activist. I stopped being a messenger. I became a bicycle activist, and I was an artist at that, at that time already. And I was invited by a bag company to paint on some bags, a bike messenger bag company called Timbuktu. I think they're out of San Francisco. So they invited me to paint on some bags on some fabric that they turn into bags. Nice. And so I had an idea of what I wanted to do. I was doing a lot of silk screening at the time. And so I was hand painting these bags and silk screening. And then I knew that I needed to sew this stuff on top of the bags, but I didn't know how to sew. So yeah. And
so
of course, you guys don't really know me, but when I have a deadline, I work really well. Like with a deadline. Now it's a little less because I have just so much other stuff going on. But at the time, I was under like a super tight deadline. I called up one of my friends and I was like, can you please help me with my sewing machine? I don't even know how to thread. Like, I didn't even know how to thread it properly. Yeah. Like, I didn't know how to thread it properly. And so she and another friend of ours showed me how to do it. And I was able to take that, and I'm still using my sewing machine in my artwork. Like, I've developed a whole way of making art from using my sewing machine because I did that project and needed to learn this thing. So like, I feel like as a mixed media artist, it's like every single thing that I learn, I'm able to like bring it back into my art and use it to make my work. And so it really, I don't know, I feel like it just ties so much. Like, my life is so, I don't know, is the word like despair? Like, I have all these experiences and places that I come from, and they're so not connected. Like, I grew up Hasidic and I became a bike messenger. Right. And so they're connected within me. And so that's also like what I guess what I do with my art also is I end up pulling from all these different places, and it all comes together in these pieces.
No, that's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. I can absolutely identify with that as a multi-instrumentalist. Yeah. And that's one of the things I've pushed on people a lot is that, no, just do a bunch of different stuff because you'll never know what cross-pollination will yield. Like,
seriously.
Being a drummer has made my piano playing better versus, I don't know, just the different ways you can wrap your head around things and think about things, and even just down to communication too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being able to communicate with people from different walks of life or different facets.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I love being a mixed media artist.
Well, actually, as long as we have a moment to segue, what would you, so off the top of your head, what of the places you've lived, because you've lived in a bunch of different, very colorful places, which of those places do you feel has led the most to your own personal growth?
New York.
That kind of made New York.
Wow, New York, right off the top of your head. New York.
Well, yeah, that being said, I mean, some like experiences can lead to a lot of growth, especially when you're coming out of something like that, where you had, everything just predefined is what you're supposed to be, even your personality.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just,
giving
a blank canvas.
Yeah. It's interesting because when I left New York, I thought I was going for like 6 or 8 months. I rented out the bedroom I was staying in, subleased the bedroom that I lived in. I lived in this big illegal warehouse that people, we built into bedrooms and studios and stuff.
Nice.
So I didn't want to let that go. I know.
So New York.
Early 2000s in New York, So, I rented it out or rented out my room. And then, at some point I was like, oh, it's been like 2 years that I've been here.
So did you go back to California?
Yeah. I came back to California at that point. Yeah, that was, I want to say that was like maybe 2007. I want to say it was 2007.
So all that happened in New York over a 2-year period?
No. I lived in New York I think I moved there in 99.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes a little more sense of the timeline in my head.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah. No, I want to say I moved back to LA in 2007. Yeah. And then somewhere within a couple years, I kind of realized like, oh, I guess I'm living here. I guess this is not like, a little stint, like, yeah, I'll go hang out with my folks for a while or, Yeah. And I just really fell in love with LA. I didn't like LA as a kid. It felt so inaccessible to me. There was no like easy transportation. It was just hard.
Not being able to drive makes LA a lot harder.
Yeah. Yeah. But like as a grown up, especially with my bicycle, it really became like a playground kind of. And I just really loved what LA had turned into, culture wise and art wise. And I forget the question. I forget what the question was. I'm sorry.
No, you answered the question and more.
I thought so.
Well, okay. So, but we do, you know what? We're nearing the end. We're not quite there yet, but what would you say to someone who's trying to figure out who they are?
play, do the things that, sorry, excuse me.
Oh, you're fine.
COVID, no COVID, sorry. Sorry. Is this, yeah. So what I would say to somebody starting out is just play. Like, find the things that are enjoyable to you, that are interesting to you, build on them, learn the tools that you are interested in. Don't worry about what you think is art or what you think other people think is art. Don't worry about doing things a certain way or, everybody has their ways of making stuff. And really the real magic, I think, of being an artist is when you find the things, when you find the ways that just really connect with you or that you connect with, because inanimate objects don't connect with us, we connect with them, right?
Right.
But yeah, to just stay focused on what you are experiencing versus what you think anybody else has to say about it. Was it Andy Warhol? No, it was Jackson Pollock, right? Was it Jackson Pollock or Andy Warhol who said, you just make art? I don't know. Again, I'm going to butcher the thing, but make your art. And while everybody else is talking about it, don't even worry about it. You just continue making art. Your job is just make art. Just do it. And you'll love some stuff and you won't like other stuff. And eventually, if you keep doing those things, you will find your voice. And that's really what it's about, right? Like the more we delve into ourselves and into our tools and into what we enjoy and want to do, that's where our voice comes from.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't come from other people telling us stuff.
Right.
That's other people's voices. That's not my voice. That's everybody else's. And I feel like my whole journey in life is learning to hear my own voice and where I want to go with it, where I want to take it.
Where do you want to take it?
To the moon, baby. Honestly, I'm just so proud to actually have a functioning website up, and no, seriously, because it's
no joke.
It's no joke. It's so intense for like artists who just want to make stuff, to do all the other stuff in the background, to be able to have a functioning business is so much. So I'm real proud of that. That's only like my website's only a few months old. Where do I want to go? I want to just continue to make art. I want to, I have so many ideas for things, so many ideas and so many things I want to do. I have collaborative things that I want to do with people who are not artists, like with my audience. I have collaborative pieces I want to start doing with my audience. I have ideas for that. So really, what I really want to do is I just want to keep doing what I'm doing and take it, as far as I can. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's exactly, I totally get that. And it sounds like that's where your intention is. That's where you are moving into that direction. And it's always good to have that idea of where it is you want to go so that you can start to steer in that direction.
Oh, yeah. I think for me, I know we're running out of time, but one other thing, that is just real important to me art-wise is, I want everybody to know that even if you're not an artist, you can be a collector. You don't have to, like, one of my intentions with making work is to make pieces that are affordable so that, and regardless of how big or small, when people have that experience of owning a print, like an art print or an original piece of work from somebody, it's like, it's so special and it's so powerful. And, it is my intention, like, regardless of how far I go, I really want people who connect to my work to be able to have it and to have it in their homes and to live with it. I think that's one of the most precious things about artwork, is to be able to look at something that you love every single day and have it with you and, experience that. Like, art is living. It's not just something that, needs to be seen in galleries or museums. Like, live with art. Regardless of just, so yeah. I just want to say that.
Oh no, that's
Yeah.
that's super important. I feel really, and I feel badly for anyone who hasn't like been able to connect with art in that way, who doesn't have it around them, poster
But I
people
think,
or just,
yeah. I mean, I think that a lot of times people think that they need to have a lot of money to be a collector or to have original art. They think they need to be like really wealthy. And like, you don't. Just
Well,
find art that you like and buy.
right.
Like, there's so many artists who make stuff that's like, you could find amazing art for like $20, $50,
Yeah.
200 bucks. Like,
Although it does help to have a lot of money to collect art.
oh yeah, of course. Listen, I mean, the truth of the matter is that it helps in general. It does help to have, people like to say this, oh, money doesn't make you happy. And yes, that's certainly true, but it is helpful. And there's a lot of people who are unhappy because they don't have it.
What was that, like $70,000 a year? That was like the top of the bell curve there. I remember reading an article about that where it's like, I think it was like $70,000 as just by yourself.
As
Then
an artist?
No, just as a person.
As a person to be able to live
covered, but you don't have enough money to have new problems.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, when we are in a society where most people don't have $400 saved if they have an emergency, like, there's major problems around us, and we as a society like definitely need to be addressing them.
But if you do have $400, you should use it on art.
I mean, if you have like, or feed your kids.
Feed your kids.
Feed your kids art. Wait, no, you can't do that.
Well, speaking of that, you had mentioned that you have 2 kids. Do you think they're following in your footsteps?
So, it's funny. What my older kid, he has he's so amazing. He has such a mechanical mind, and he's like super obsessed with trains, and he could tell you everything about like every train that ever existed, like for real. And he doesn't like to draw or paint that much, but he does really like to like get into Play-Doh and all that stuff.
Sculptor, maybe.
The almost 2-year-old. I have one kid who's going to be 2 like in January, and he's like my little art guy. Like he when I say, hey, do you want to draw? Do you want to use the markers? He like runs over to his high chair and gets all excited, and he like gets up in his high chair and is all ready. he loves it. So I like have this, stack of markers, like, the Crayola markers, right? The super washable kind.
Sure.
Right? And so I'll hold out, the color stack to him, and he will go and he'll pick the color that he wants. And he loves the color purple. He doesn't say a lot of words yet, but he goes, purple, purple. He's like so excited. For Hanukkah, it was just Hanukkah. So I got him a set of like paints, like this, like these non-toxic paints. And he was just over the moon for them. Like it's like really sweet. So I think, look, my kids can be whoever they want to be, whatever they want to do, as long as they're, good humans. But this guy, I mean, I think he really likes art. So we'll see.
You'll see, right?
I'm happy to support, whatever they want to do.
You got it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I do think that does draw our podcast to a close for today.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun. Thank you.
No, it's been a blast
for being here. I mean, thank you for coming and talking with us. It's been just an absolute delight to have you.
It's been so sweet. You guys are super fun, and I was so nervous, and then like you guys just made me feel very at home, and yeah.
I am so happy about that. No reason to be nervous. We have a great time here. And where would you like to send those that are listening to this podcast? Where would you like them to go to learn more about you?
Yeah, my website is www.ashirasiegelfox.com. It's a little bit of a mouthful.
Well, let's spell that out for them.
ASHIRASIEGELFOX.com. There are not many Ashiras in the world, I think.
And there's fewer Ashira Siegel Foxes.
That's right. Yeah. So like worst case, people can certainly Google me like Ashira art. I do all my social media handles are under Ashira's art. So
Nice.
you can always Google that too, Ashira's art. At some point I might switch my website to Ashira Fine Art. I don't know. I'm still playing around with it, but
they can find you for now.
For now, yeah. AshiraSiegelFox.com. I'm also on Instagram at Ashira's art and TikTok now. That's a thing.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
That is a thing.
I feel very, very proud of myself
good.
for that as a, middle-aged person now.
on TikTok.
Yeah.
Very
but
good.
It's fun. I mean, I have to say it's fun.
Good for you. I am not there yet, but
took me a little while.
Yeah,
honestly.
Actually, no, that's a new venture I am going to be jumping on fairly shortly.
You should do it. It's fun. Yeah. It's especially if you're a musician, get on there. Yeah.
Very
get
good.
On there. Yeah.
Well,
Karlana, Ryan, thank you so much for having me again. This has just been so much fun.
Absolutely. Well, and hey, I would like to go and thank anyone who's listening for listening to How Do Artists. And on behalf of myself, Karlana, and Ashira, I would like to say so long until next week, same time, same place. Bring your questions and your curiosity, and we will see you then.